हेलो हाय एवरीवन। आज हम लोग चेक करेंगे ईशान शर्मा का पॉडकास्ट विद प्रखर। ये पार्ट 1 होगा वीडियो का। हम इसको मल्टीपल पार्ट्स में चेक करेंगे। लेट्स जंप टू द वीडियो।
इंसानी प्रजाति बहुत प्रजाति है। तू अलग मूली है, तू कहीं और पैदा हुआ था, तू इस जनरेशन का पार्ट नहीं। तेरे को क्यों लगता है तू स्पेशल है? कंप्लीटली नंगे हम स्विमिंग कर रहे हैं रात से 3-4 बजे से अंधेरे में। इस आपकी लाइफ कैसा चल रहा है? सही है? मजा आ रहा है? क्योंकि नहीं आ रहा ना, सच बताओ।
लोग नीचे बोलते हैं गर्ल्स दीस डेज।
वो लड़कियां बोलती बॉयज दीस डेज, ऑल मेन आर ट्रैश। हर पॉलिटिकल कैंपेन का अंडरलाइन टैगलाइन होता है राम राज्य आया है अपनी चिंताओं में। ओ माय गॉड, ये कैसे होगा? ओ मेरे को ये चाहिए। ओ काश मेरे पास ये होता, इसके पास ये क्यों है?
आपको लोग जॉर्डन पीटरसन बोलते हैं इंडिया का क्या?
मेरे को
Have you heard that before?
yeah I mean I heard that before I was famous on social bro. Like मेरे friends कोलंबिया में मेरे को बोलते थे and it's a tremendous compliment. मतलब मैं compliment भी क्या बोलूँ? Of course I understand that this is a joke and part of it comes from the fact that bro when I was roughly your age, when I was 21-22, अब तो तू 24-25 का होगा?
22 itself.
22, right? Yeah. So when I was your age, I was going through, let's say, a kind of an awakening. I had just moved countries. I was living in America. I was living by myself and it was strange and you know the environment itself was kind of overwhelming. तो मैं बोलते बोलते जॉर्डन पीटरसन बन गया फिर, right? And it was not like, see, I think Peterson says something about having a second father, right? You have a first father, you have a second father. I also think you have third, fourth, fifth fathers. But Peterson was, in a sense, my second father, right? I learned a lot about how to lead a life as a man, as a boy transitioning into a man from Peterson. And I frankly think he's a genius. I know there is a little bit of discredit that happens to him now, partly because of his political commentary, which I've always kind of thought is a little whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think he's a genius when it comes to understanding psychology. He's a genius when it comes to pointing to the fact that psychology is better understood in religion and spirituality and those domains than it is in actual science, psychology. And so I copied a lot of his behaviors, right? But I have phases, like the last podcast I was talking like this, which is very Osho. So it depends on who I'm listening to, you know. You sort of have an osmosis kind of a thing with people you listen to. And I'm sure I have seen videos of people trying to talk like me also on the internet because they listen to me a lot and then they talk like me. So it's very understandable.
What is the biggest thing that you've learned from him?
From Peterson? Let's see. I'll tell you what. I think what I've learned from him, and it reflects in the way I talk, is you must always attempt to chase your thoughts with words. And it's not a very simple idea. But the point is, when you're speaking to illuminate the idea to yourself. तुम अपने से बात कर रहे हो. And when you're trying to talk to yourself, you are thinking at a speed. और उसके पीछे you are trying to chase it down with words that you speak. And in doing so, you produce the best kind of answer to a question that you can. Interesting?
Very interesting.
Right, I agree.
अभी होने वाला है वीडियो में, अभी आगे चल करके hopefully.
डरा रहा है भाई, कहाँ ले जा रहा है?
नहीं ठीक है.
हाँ.
Tell me about US. How did US change you as an Indian male going to US? In what ways did it change you and how did it make you better or worse?
Bro, why did you assume my gender? First of all, you don't know my pronouns. I haven't given. Too many ways. ठीक है? तो see, I come from a smallish town. I won't say Faridabad is a small town, but it's a smallish town. It is right south of Delhi. So there is a Delhi sort of let's say Delhi flows into it. But in the day-to-day, it's a small community. Okay? And within that small community also, there's only so many people that are worth knowing. So effectively, I was a big fish in a small pond. Right? I remember touching down in America, or my classroom, I had students everywhere from 18 to like 30 something. Not even that, like some students, मैं average बता रहा हूँ, like there were some 70-year-olds also. Right?
Columbia University.
Columbia में. And particularly in, Columbia has a school called the School of General Studies, which is open to students who want to start their undergrad late for whatever reason. You were an actor, a ballet dancer, an army veteran, whatever. You want to come to school now, come. For you, it'd be perfect. Okay? Because, you know, you are famously a dropout. So, I landed. I remember day 1 or day 2, school orientation हो रही थी. ठीक है? It's a very overwhelming experience, first of all, when you land there in America or matlab orientation ho rahi hai. And I was 21, so I was kind of already a few years older than the average freshman. I met my roommate to be at the orientation. His name was Parveer Sidhu, from California, originally from Punjab. I met him, I spoke to him, and I was like, whoa, what? Like, matlab, मेरे को मेरी औकात पता लग गई, ठीक है?
In what terms?
matlab, bro, he was Prakhar, but 1.5 times in every way. He was like my older brother. Right? Like he was the guy I modeled myself around for a very long time. He was the
same
guy.
age.
No, he was older. He was a few years older. But psychologically, from a standpoint of wisdom, courage, morality, many years older. Many years older. Like maybe, like he seems like he's a 50-year-old in the way he carries himself. And I mean that as a compliment. Like great guy. ठीक है? तो मैं उससे बात करी, मेरी थोड़ी फट गई. मेरे को लगा वाओ यार, मतलब fuck, these guys have depth. तो उसी रात को हम लोग अपने अपार्टमेंट में बैठे हैं. हमारे अपार्टमेंट में कोई फर्नीचर नहीं है और हम लोगों ने एक पिज़्ज़ा ऑर्डर कर रखा है. हम पिज़्ज़ा बॉक्स ज़मीन पे बैठ के एसी के बगल में, गर्मी और ऐसे फॉल की सी शाम है, हम लोग पिज़्ज़ा खा रहे हैं, बात कर रहे हैं. एंड वी आर डिस्कसिंग आइडियाज़, वी आर डिबेटिंग फिलॉसफी, मी एंड हिम, एंड देयर वर अ फ्यू अदर, वी हैड 4 रूममेट्स टोटल. एंड आई एम फाइंडिंग इट सो हार्ड टू रेसल विद हिम. Like I'm like, bro, मैं who's known for wrestling ideas back in India. And so this was the beginning of me realizing, now this is a big pond and I'm a small fish.
Why is it important to wrestle with ideas?
Let me come to that. Let me finish the point I was trying to make. This feeling took over the next 6-8 months. Not just that, I was fairly smooth here, like talking to people, charming, whatever, girls, this, that. वहाँ मैं गया, I think my second or third date, I got stood up and that was a shock. I was like, ये कौन है जिसने पू को मुड़ के नहीं देखा? Like, मैं बैठा हूँ, अभी हमारी आधे घंटे पहले बात हुई है, मिल रहे हैं, वो आई नहीं. And I'm just surprised what is happening. So from meeting my older brother, who was really like quite a monster, quite a beast intellectually, morally, in so many ways, and the right word is superior, right? That was very interesting. And then realizing, bro, यहाँ तो 18 साल का बच्चा भी इतना अकलमंद है, मेरे को तो पता ही नहीं सवाल क्या पूछना है, और मैं अपने आप को फन्ने खा समझता हूँ. So it was a grand humbling experience at first. And only once you're destroyed can you rebuild. And then without realizing, I was in rebuilding mode. And I'm having some of the most important years of my life in New York City at Columbia University, one of the best schools in the world. I'm going through my first depression there. I'm going through a tough breakup there. I'm going through falling in love in that place. I'm going through meeting a completely novel set of individuals who have a very interesting history. All of this is happening there. So I think I grew up in that 6-year period as an Indian guy who's not from India. समझ रहा है? Like I went from being I can access my देसी मोड. मैं हिंदी में बोलता इसलिए नहीं क्योंकि मुंह से गाली निकल जाएगी, पॉडकास्ट पे अच्छा नहीं लगता.
फरीदाबाद से
भाई मैं तेरे को बता नहीं रहा, कई बार तो मैं प्रोफेशनल सेटिंग में मुंह से बोल देता हूँ यार, क्योंकि मैंने जितना जब मैं हिंदी में डेली बात करता था तो मैं फरीदाबाद रहता था, फरीदाबाद में कोई बात करता बिना गाली दिए. फिर मैं इंग्लिश में बोलने लगा तो मेरी इंग्लिश स्मूथ है उस सेंस में, लाइक इंटेलेक्चुअली आई थिंक इन इंग्लिश, राइट? सो it changed me completely. It changed me from being somebody who could have gone down a very arrogant, cocky road. And I know sometimes people will tend to label me regardless. But it changed me from that to realizing, bro, the world is so much bigger and there's so much beauty to be found. And unless you are willing to submerge, swim, be destroyed and be rebuilt, nothing is ever possible. Stop holding on to who you are. Find people who are far better than you. Always be the second or the third dumbest person in the room. Right? Like, swim as hard as you can when you find those people, be with them, learn from them. And वो experience भी ऐसा होता है ना bro, when time went on, now everybody is somewhere. One of my friends is fighting the war in Israel. He's an Israeli soldier. One of my friends is now back in this state and that state and doing this thing and that thing. And so I've also seen the coming together of these individuals, aligning themselves around certain ideals and morals and then going away. It's a beautiful journey. So that's the answer to that question. As far as wrestling with ideas is concerned, भाई इंसानी प्रजाति बहुत, एंड फॉरगिव माय फ्रेंड, प्रजाति है. हमारी प्रोग्रामिंग है भेड़ चाल, और पर्टिकुलरली इंडियन आदमी की. हमारी जो स्ट्रॉन्ग साइड है ना एज एन इंडियन, विच इज़ वी आर अ कम्युनिटी सोसाइटी बेस्ड ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल, which probably is the reason, my guess is, that prevents us from having widespread depression and other mental health issues and loneliness. Because
divorce rates.
Well, divorce rate's a separate topic. But what prevents us from being so alone existentially that we succumb to depression is this social structure, right? But इसके pressures भी हैं. और उसके pressures का एक सबसे common pressure है, जहाँ भीड़ खड़े होकर हाँ बोल देती है, हम लाइन में लग जाते हैं. कुछ दिन पहले मैं दिल्ली एयरपोर्ट से फरीदाबाद जा रहा था, तो द उबर आई वॉज इन ब्रोक डाउन ऑन टॉप ऑफ अ फ्लाईओवर. तो मैं बाहर खड़ा हो गया, दूसरी ऊपर बुलाई. अब वो 10-15 मिनट लेगी आने में. हर आदमी को हमें देखना है, क्या हो रहा है ये, क्या हो रहा है ये. पहले आदमी ने देखा होगा आउट ऑफ क्यूरियोसिटी, उसके पीछे सारे आदमियों ने क्यों देखा, क्योंकि पहला आदमी क्यों देख रहा था, ऐसा क्या हो रहा है यहाँ पे. और ये हमारी नीयत है ये, ठीक है. So forget the world. Let's talk about Indians because तेरी audience largely Indian होगी. The reason why you should wrestle with ideas is because you're too easy to fool. And it will not take something more than just me speaking confidently to convince you of anything at all. And in fact, if I were to be completely truthful, if I were to go down to the bottom of the barrel, psychologically, philosophically, spiritually, you are already fooled. the reason why you must wrestle with ideas so you can unfool yourself, so you can finally wake up in some sense.
Who fooled you?
You yourself. You're the biggest trickster. Like, Ishan, what do you want in life?
Growth.
Yeah, that's a fool's fucking approach to life, bro. What are you doing? Like, truly, like if you really, अगर हम उसको फाड़ने लगे ना अच्छे से, तो तू realize करेगा क्या growth, कहाँ है? और इस
निहिलिज्म है वो तो मतलब.
नहीं नाइलिज्म नहीं है, वो वेकिंग अप है. बट तू उस ग्रोथ के पीछे जो तू कर रहा है ना, द वे यू अप्रोच ग्रोथ, से फॉर इंस्टेंस, और द फैक्ट दैट यू इवन ट्राई फॉर ग्रोथ, एज इफ तू अगर कुछ नहीं करेगा तो ग्रोथ नहीं होगी. क्यों नहीं होगी भाई? और
इतनी नहीं होगी जितनी चाहिए.
किस चीज में ग्रोथ?
In various aspects, physical, mental, career wise.
And
business.
until you get that growth, you keep yourself slightly unhappy. You're like, अभी मिले नहीं है.
नहीं, I love this journey that I'm on.
Oh, you're loving the journey?
I love this talk that you have.
Then let's say you are an exception, right?
And do you think that is me fooling myself?
No. Well, you can say, but okay, I'll take another common example. Love, right? Look at the commentary around love. Modern day commentary. एक तो हमारी बॉलीवुड कॉमेंट्री कि प्यार मिल जाए सब बराबर हो जाता है. Fooling yourself. ऐसा कभी नहीं होता. दूसरा, प्यार झूठा है, औरतें तुम्हारा दिल तोड़ने के लिए पड़ी हैं और मर्द सारे कुत्ते होते हैं. वो भी झूठ है.
Red pill, black pill.
दोनों तरफ झूठ है. Both those sides are complete lies. Neither of them are true. But when we fall in love, we believe the first. When we fall out of love, we believe the second. So you are constantly fooling yourself, right? अब मैं ये नहीं कह रहा कि this is a slightly tricky, people may not understand, but when you are in one of those two zones, I'm not saying snap out of it and realize what is logically true. Because logic itself is a lie if you really go down to the bottom of it. Logic is an attempt to fool yourself. ये तो खैर सब existential, philosophical, spiritual है, but थोड़ा सा भी ऊपर आएगा. People chase success because or chase growth because they watch Ishan. Ishan has successfully fooled his audience. Prakhar has fooled his audience into thinking you can articulate your way out of anything. That you can be confident for the love of God. Everybody is fooling each other. And unless you have the ability, the software to tackle your own set of ideas, unless you have the intelligence to discover who you are truly, you are not even living. That is the reason you are unhappy. And all of you are unhappy. Let me be fucking real. And so it begins with having the ability to wrestle with ideas because you're too easy to fool.
Are you
Constantly.
unhappy?
Sometimes. Yeah.
But that's how it should be, right? You cannot expect yourself to be always happy.
No. That's that is also fooling yourself in some way. Matlab, we are getting fairly spiritual at this point, right?
Right.
Spiritual in the sense that we are talking about a level of psychology जो काफी deep है. See, happiness has two forms. There's joy and there's pleasure. If you seek to be pleasureful always, if you want to be always in pleasure, that's fooling yourself. If you understand that joy is right here and right now, that's not fooling yourself, that's waking up. समझ रहा है? तो of course I'm unhappy, but I'm very joyful in my unhappiness these days. बड़ा मजा आता है. वाओ, अरे unhappy हो रहे हैं, fuck, ये कैसे हो रहा है? Oh, crazy.
ऐसा भी होता है.
हाँ, वाओ, नहीं ऐसा तो होता है. वाओ, दोबारा आ गया, कुत्ते, फिर आ गया तू. Like, you know, it's that kind of a thing. अगर मैं इसको, if I borrow it into some kind of religious metaphor, this is all Shakti. And Shakti will show you good days and bad days. But it's all Shakti. You can't deny Shakti. You can't deny the unhappy part of Shakti. Are you truly enjoying it though? Are you truly realizing it, accepting it though? वो एक क्वेश्चन आ जाता है. कैसे रहेगा हैप्पी? एक दिन तेरे पापा को भी जाना है, एक दिन तेरी मम्मी को भी जाना है. रियल बात तो ये है. एक दिन तेरी बीवी भी तेरा दिल तोड़ेगी, कुछ भी कर ले, लड़ाई होगी, बच्चे भी तेरे को गाली देंगे, बोलेंगे पापा हमारे ऐसे ही हैं. तूने भी दिया है अपने पापा को, तो वो तो आना ही है. वो तो तू अवॉइड नहीं कर सकता.
नहीं, मैंने नहीं दी पापा, देख रहे कर.
अब तो सच बोल दे साले, कब तक झूठ बोलेगा?
नहीं भाई. ठीक है, वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. बहुत सारी बातें यहाँ पे आपने करी.
तूने जॉर्डन पीटरसन शुरू करा, तेरी गलती है. तू बोलता है ऐसी कोई अल्लू पल्लू बात, मजे आते.
अल्लू पल्लू बात थोड़ी करने के लिए बैठे हैं हम. But what is one thing that we should learn from people in the US, going back to the conversation that we were having, and one thing we should not learn from them as Indians of our age?
What should we learn from the States? I have an idea that is on the surface of my mind. I'm not sure if that is the one I want to go with. See, okay, yes, this is a good one. Okay? What we can learn from Americans is how they perform their civic duty. कोई नहीं देख रहा होगा लेकिन वो कचरा नहीं फेंकेंगे. कोई नहीं देख रहा होगा लेकिन वो ब्राइब नहीं लेंगे. Because they see that as their patriotic like responsibility. हम लोग कितनी भी बात कर लें धार्मिक होने की, हम हैं, वी आर द बर्थ प्लेस ऑफ धर्मा. But let's be honest, दरवाजा बंद होते ही मैं अंडर द टेबल 50,000 रुपए की ब्राइब ले ही लेता हूँ. तो we have no allegiance to our kul, to our community, to our country at that point. We don't see our civic duty as our patriotic responsibility. What should we not borrow from Americans is consuming, let's say, the spiritual religious matrix. क्योंकि उन लोगों की सर्च बड़ी ऑनेस्ट है. वो एक्चुअली उस पॉइंट पे हैं जहां वो मटीरियली सेटिस्फाइड हैं और अब वो ढूंढना चाहते हैं जीवन का सत्य. दे आर राइट देयर, राइट? बट उनकी आदतें इज कंजम्पशन. तो वो स्पिरिचुअल को भी पकड़ते हैं और खा जाते हैं उसे. मैं अब ये हूं, लुक आई हैव नो ईगो सो आई एम बेटर देन यू. क्या फायदा हुआ? यहां पे भी आके उल्टा घूम गए. समझ रहा है? सो what we definitely should learn is how they treat their country. Frankly, it is better than how we treat our country and our community, no doubt. But how they treat their spiritual pursuit, they're so lost. They're so lost. There is many doors that exist in India to find who you truly are, and almost very few in America. That's what
I
I'd say.
recently visited Japan. Have you visited Japan?
No.
I had an amazing experience.
Are you into that kind of pornography?
नहीं
ये पता हंसा क्यों है? मैं बताऊं हंसा क्यों है?
Did not go for that. There's something called as maid cafes. Have you heard of it?
No.
Maid cafes is very unique to Japan. So you go there. There are women who are dressed like the anime characters, and then they try to
बात करने
please
लगा
you.
ये
And
फिर.
then the YouTube censorship happens.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
So
No, Japan is a famously sexually repressed society that has very interesting ways of expressing their sexuality.
it is.
Yeah.
I'll tell you बहुत सारी चीजें हैं उसकी.
क्यों? कैमरे पे क्यों नहीं?
नहीं, but the biggest thing I should learn from Japan,
हाँ.
particularly,
Yeah.
is this idea of civic responsibility that you just talked about, and along with that, the eye for efficiency. They're efficient with every single thing.
Yep.
And
They're process oriented.
हाँ,
Yep.
हर चीज कायदे से होती है वहाँ पे. हर चीज के लिए नियम लिखा हुआ है वहाँ पे. ऐसे ऐसे होगा सब कुछ. एंड कुछ और करोगे तो फिर.
And look at the irony, right? We are frankly the civilization that has more rule-based literature than any civilization ever, historically speaking. इतने वेद, इतने उपनिषद, इतने पुराण, उसके बाद कुछ हमारे जैनों में, कुछ हमारे बुद्धों में, कुछ हमारे सिखों में, इतना लिटरेचर है that talks about how society should be run. Then there are thinkers who were thinking purely on material planes. You have your Chanakya, Shankaracharya and whatnot. Everything is happening. And then Krishna comes in, says the most powerful thing in the Bhagavad Gita, कर्मण्यवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन. प्रोसेस पे फोकस करना, जर्नी पे फोकस करना, आउटकम पे नहीं, वो मेरा काम है, राइट? और फिर भी हम भाई 50,000 रुपए दे दे टेबल के नीचे से, तेरा टेंडर पास करवा दूंगा. और जापानी लोग ऐसा नहीं करते ब्रो.
Right.
They have a different responsibility towards their work. They are more karam yogis than we tend to be.
And you know what is interesting about their religion? They don't have a deity. They don't have like a one god.
They're
It's called
Shinto Buddhist है ना?
Yeah.
हाँ,
So
हाँ.
even in their temple, right? We were like trying to understand क्या हो रहा है यहाँ पे. Right? So they bow down and then they throw that coin over there, and then they wish for something.
And it's Buddhist, no, effectively.
Not exactly. It is
Achha.
different. Buddhism is like China and all that, but Japanese religion is Shinto, and they don't believe in a god. They just believe in this one. Something is there.
Right.
I asked my friend who was living in Japan for the last 5 years. He's working in Uniqlo, and he was like, यहाँ पे लोग भगवान पे भरोसा नहीं करते, but they will still have some prayer before they eat food. And because of all the things that has happened to Japan, they've been like कि no one came to save us. We saved ourselves अपने आप ही खुद ही. Right? All the tsunamis, all the earthquakes, all the things
Very
that happened to Japan.
Very interesting.
And so that was very interesting for me to learn from them. But the thing that you should not learn from Japan
Is sexual repression.
that and this idea that because they have so many processes, वहाँ पे innovation इतनी ज़्यादा नहीं आती. जो US से जो बातें हो रही हैं वहाँ पे, वो वहाँ तक पहुँचने में बहुत टाइम लग जाता है.
Yeah, you have to break the rules to truly innovate.
Exactly.
Yep.
And because वहाँ पे जो elder generation है वो ही सब पूरा power सारे laws govern करते हैं, they don't let new ideas get executed.
Sure.
So there's always some things to learn, some things not to take from.
It's a
different
disease of
religions
order.
and
It's a disease of order.
Order.
Right? Masculinity, like अगर हम symbolically बात करें, masculinity is order, right? Masculinity is rule based. And so when there is too much of that, which sometimes happens with very strict fathers, the kid's natural urges to explore and be chaotic are suppressed, and the kid hates the father. Very common in
Isn't that
households.
every kid out there in India?
No, sometimes the father is different and the mother is worse, and the mother is too chaotic. Feminine being too chaotic. And so the kid cannot have simple order. They don't know how to operate themselves structurally through the day. तो वहाँ पे एक different problem होती है. India is a chaotic land. And India is mother India in its true essence. Japan is probably father Japan in its true essence. Yeah, like
Daddy Japan.
eventually all conversations I have end up in daddy issues.